Can you imagine being forced from your home, walking over 1,000 miles in harsh conditions with inadequate supplies? What would it be like to undertake such a perilous journey? Today we dive deep into what life on the Trail of Tears was like. We'll explore the chilling experiences faced by the Cherokee and other tribes who endured unimaginable hardships. If you're interested in uncovering the truths of this dark chapter in American history, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join us for this eye-opening exploration. On May 28, 1830, President Andrew Jackson enacted the Indian Removal Act. This legislation allowed the U.S. to terminate Native American land rights in the Southeast, empowering Jackson to negotiate land access and improvements. It also provided funds for tribes relocating west. The act sparked intense debate. Supporters, predominantly from Georgia and the southern states, faced strong opposition from Christian missionaries and some Congress members. Ultimately, the act did not explicitly authorize forced removals, but it led to the displacement of tribes like the Choctaw, Creek, Chickasaw, Cherokee, and Seminole, among others, on what is famously known as the Trail of Tears. The journey marked a dark chapter in American history, driven by settlers' expansionist aims. At the time of the Trail of Tears, Native Americans, commonly referred to as Indians, were deeply unpopular in many states they passed through. Consequently, they often had to detour significantly to avoid towns where locals didn't want them. On these detours, landowners frequently imposed hefty fees for crossing their property. For instance, when the Cherokee traversed Tennessee and Kentucky to reach southern Illinois, they faced a steep fee of $1 per person, around $22.26 to cross the Ohio River by ferry, whereas other ferry users typically paid just $0.12 to $2.67. Private John G. Burnett, who assisted as a translator during this migration, later described these events in stark terms in his 80th birthday memoirs. He labeled the trail as the most brutal order in American warfare. Burnett's recollections particularly emphasized the severe weather conditions the Native Americans endured during their forced journey, highlighting the relentless challenges they faced. In May 1838, the Cherokee were confined in stockades in Cleveland, Tennessee, until they began their migration in October, embarking on a 1,000-mile trek during the harsh winter. As recorded by John G. Burnett, many walked barefoot with minimal blankets amidst sleet and snow. The severe cold led to widespread illness, such as pneumonia, causing numerous deaths. This arduous journey from their ancestral lands forced upon them by the U.S. government saw hundreds of Native Americans struggling across the icy wilderness, battling for survival. As the Cherokee embarked on the Trail of Tears, onlookers lined the roads, silently observing without offering aid. This stark image is captured in the testimony of Samuel Cloud, who was 9 years old during the journey. His recollections, passed down by his great-grandson, highlight the profound alienation he felt, particularly resenting the spectators in warm woolen clothes. Additionally, the Cherokee were not alone in their suffering. They brought their African-American slaves along. These individuals faced the brutal conditions of the trail while also serving their Cherokee owners, compounding the injustice as they moved from Tennessee to new territories in Oklahoma. On the Trail of Tears, essentials such as food, water, shelter, and medicine were scarce. Travelers struggled to hunt and gather food with only minimal rations available and little game to hunt. This scarcity led to widespread starvation, and there were even shortages of coffins for the deceased. That year, a severe drought exacerbated their suffering, drying up rivers and forcing a group to return to base camp in Chattanooga, Tennessee due to dehydration. Conflicts were frequent, exemplified by Private John Burnett's intervention in an incident where a teamster was brutally whipping an elderly man. Burnett's encounter reflects the broader violence faced by the travelers, who also contended with local militias. The lack of sufficient wagons meant that most had to walk the 1,000 miles, often barefoot, reserved only for the very young, old, sick, and nursing mothers. This journey on foot under harsh conditions symbolizes the extreme hardships endured on the trail. A traveler from Maine once observed a group in Kentucky where elderly women, seemingly on the brink of death, were seen walking barefoot with heavy loads. The northern route, spanning about 1,000 miles through Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, and into Oklahoma, was the main path taken by the Cherokee. Initially expected to take 2 months, the journey stretched to nearly 4 due to harsh conditions, inadequate supplies, and illness, resulting in a daily progress of only 8 to 9 miles. Faced with the grim choices posed by the Indian Removal Act, many opted to relocate, while some, like the Seminole in Florida, chose resistance, leading to conflict with the U.S. government. In 1835, when the U.S. Army went to enforce the treaty that required the Seminoles to surrender their land in Florida, they were ambushed by 180 Seminole warriors. This confrontation escalated into a costly conflict that lasted until 1842, resulting in over $20 million in military expenditures and the deaths of more than 1,500 soldiers. Despite the removal of many, some Seminoles managed to remain, establishing communities in the remote Florida Everglades. Meanwhile, the Trail of Tears claimed the lives of approximately 4,000 Cherokees due to exposure, starvation, illness, and the severe conditions of their journey. Many were hastily buried in shallow graves along their route. By the 1840s, tens of thousands of indigenous Americans had been displaced from their southeastern homes to new territories west of the Mississippi River, known as Indian Territory. The U.S. government initially promised that the new lands designated for Native Americans would remain untouched by settlers. However, as America pursued its westward expansion, this so-called Indian Territory continually shrank. By 1907, when Oklahoma became the 46th state, the Indian Territory officially ceased to exist. Today, the Trail of Tears spans 9 states and is recognized as the Trail of Tears National Historic Trail, managed by the National Park Service. While the entire route can no longer be traversed as it was in the 1830s, parts of it are still accessible by various means. And as we wrap up this video, what are your thoughts on the Trail of Tears? Were there aspects of this journey that surprised you? Drop your comments below, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to stay updated on more discussions like this.